Hello everybody, this is Derek, and in this video I'm going to explain a principle in which may allow the debts to go lower, both the national debt, the debts we all have today, and it's all found in an accounting book, volume 1 accounting book of the Fundamental Accounting Principles 8th edition, 8th Canadian edition, volume 1 of 3. And I was just thinking of a way in which we can eliminate debts from the education that I had in accounting, and I thought, you know what? It worked in accounting classes, why can't it work in the real world, especially when they're trying to teach us stuff in the real world? Now, remember that I'm just a regular guy. I don't work for any big accounting firm. In fact, I haven't worked in this type of field in almost a decade now. And I never ever worked for more than $10 an hour when I exclude all factory jobs. So, hey, I mean, what do I know? But I just go on the internet, try to educate the best that I can, and then try to explain myself the best that I possibly can. So I open up this book to where it talks about bad debts. And it says in here that when a company grants credit to its customers, there usually are a few who do not pay what they have promised. The accounts of such customers are called bad debts. These bad debts amounts that cannot be collected are an expense of selling on credit. You may ask why merchants sell on credit if it is likely that some of the accounts prove to be uncollectible. The answer is that they believe granting credit will increase revenues and profits. They are willing to incur bad debt losses if the net effect is to increase sales and profits. Therefore, bad debt losses are an expense of selling on credit that is incurred to increase sales. So obviously they were saying that they want to have more and more people with credit because that will generate higher revenue and sales. And we look at the housing market or the housing bubble nearly to mid-2000s, we've seen how they increased the price of houses, how they gave almost every Tom, Dick, and Harry a loan for their house because they did it to increase revenue and increase sales. And of course, I've also been on here talking in past videos on the simple mathematics, something you won't find in this book or in volume 2 or 3, on how the fundamentals of interest and the dollar is set up, that every single time interest is charged, that increases debt because that money isn't produced anywhere. If we were on a silver standard, for example, or a gold standard, and we were to trade in gold and silver and then charge interest when somebody needed money, that problem could be fixed because you would just have to mine more gold and silver to cover the interest payments. But with the way we have it set up with dollars, that is not entirely possible to happen because of the monopoly that the central bankers are using right now. So anyway, back to how we can eliminate the bad debts. And the thing that I would like to say would work is we would need to see all of the big companies just write off their debts. And I can't expect that to happen, at least not anywhere in the near-term future. But to show you in small numbers how this bad debts would work is the following. Say I bought apples and I sell them wholesale to other people. I buy them for 25 cents a piece and I sell them for 40 cents a piece. If I were to sell a big, large truck full of apples to my customer, say it cost him $400, and he promises to pay me back, I give him how much I charge interest and whatnot, but this customer had financial problems, was not able to pay anything back, that after about a year has went by, he owes me about let's say $425 with interest, and I haven't received a single penny from the guy, and he still has those apples which have already been eaten or gone bad by now. So what happens is on my books, on my financial books, I have got an accounts receivable of $425 to this John Doe fellow. I have incurred revenue of sales on apples at $400, and I've also incurred an interest revenue of $25. So I have $425 in revenue. That would probably sound really good. And I also have $425 in higher assets, which would also sound good. But when you write off this bad debts expense, what you gotta do is you gotta take that accounts receivable off the table. So normally accounts receivable on your books would come in as a debit. But I would credit the accounts receivable for $425 to write that expense off, which would reduce my equity and reduce my assets. And then I'd have to write in an expense for the bad debts for $425, which would reduce my revenue and increase my expenses. So that's how you write off bad debt. So in all reality, to fix the situation that I'm talking about as far as eliminating debt, we would need all of these big companies, your credit card companies like Visa, MasterCard, and all of the financial companies like Citigroup. Heck, I paid Citigroup like 80% on the principal that I paid for a computer that I bought about 8 years ago. I bought a $1,000 computer. It cost me like $1,800 with their financing. Where did this $800 come from? It came from nowhere. It makes the debt go higher. But because I paid that debt off, does that mean that $800 debt has been written off? No, because that just means that debt is somewhere else. Other people are paying, not for that debt in general, but for the whole collection of debt. So we would need to see these companies eliminate debt by doing these accounts principles. What this would mean is their balance sheet would get destroyed. Their revenue and income statement would get destroyed. So, I mean, you really think that's going to happen? But right now, it's the only solution that I can think of that can eliminate debt is just to say, screw the debt, it's all gone. And of course, having a world without a debt-based society would be a good thing. Now, and of course, if we were trading like gold and silver, then the interest could get paid, but we're obviously on a fiat money system that is monopolized by the central bankers. So, I mean, that's just extremely corrupt. But moving on to the bad debts, not only we need to see all these companies do it, we would need to see the banks do it all, instead of just taking your house and putting you on the street, putting you in tent city. They would need to write it off as a bad debt expense. You're not going to expect that to happen though. Federal Reserve, they'd have to do the same thing. They'd have to say all the money that the banks owe them is nothing but a bad debt expense. You really think that's going to happen? China and India and Singapore and Saudi Arabia, they'd have to do the same thing with the United States and Canada for that matter too, is write off the bad debts. China's like, you know what, that's fine, don't worry about paying us, we're okay, we're not going to take any collateral. But in reality, most likely China will take collateral. So anyway, this is my view for eliminating bad debts, but don't expect them to actually do too much of this, because they do eliminate bad debts, but not that much of it. And a lot of the bad debt that they eliminate goes through ways of stuff like collection agencies, which means they don't have to eliminate as much. What they do is they sell a loan to the collection agency for a fraction of what it is worth. So this way, instead of having, like, say, $1,000 in bad debts, maybe that's cut in half. And of course, they also do it by taking the collateral and trying to get whatever they can with it. Sort of like with the housing market, when they take your house, let's just say that they need a couple $100,000. The best they can get for it was, say, $140. Their bad debt is only $60,000. So that's how they've been trying to lower their bad debt expense. So I hope you found this video informative. Take care, everyone, and have yourself a magnificent day, everyone. Bye-bye.